What's up, Thrallers? Miller.
Necrotic Nick.
Jammin, John.
And we got another review, this time Flesher, a local to us, kind of Indianapolis, not too far away. Their first release, Tales of Grotesque Demise. This one comes out September 15th on Redefining Darkness Records, a great record label, if you will. This band formed in 2022, of course, like I said, in Indy, and this is their debut album. Features Paul Brees on guitars and vocals, Dustin Bolches on drums with additional vocals, and also Gus Matricia on bass, who was later soon replaced, I guess, live by Magnus, who's now playing bass for them.
Now, Dustin is definitely a familiar one for us. He used to be in the band Demarcus and also did some time in Skeleton Witch. And we got word that he was actually working on a new project not too long ago, and it really didn't seem like it took much time to get this one together. And then all of a sudden we have this new lethally heavy old school death metal band with a lot of brutal death metal elements. This fucker is heavy. This hits harder than fucking Mike Pence hits his Bible.
Yeah, I'm just excited to talk about this record, honestly. I've been sitting on a copy of this record for the last 2 months and forced to keep shut about it. So it's nice to finally be able to talk.
Yes, and talk we will, because this thing is, like, for me anyway, everything I love about that just brutal, heavy, just doomy death metal stuff. Kind of wraps up everything even I do on my own time. Riffs I write, I could totally kind of write in this vein. It's killer shit. Of course, the intro is kind of like a psych up, if you will, kidding with the horror movie theme, the slasher theme, which I really dig. And this album as a whole really fits to that slasher theme. It's very intense in your face. It grooves really hard. And this underlying kind of like tenseness, I guess, hunting, if you will.
There's a definite like grindhouse horror vibe to it. I mean, the intro really does set it up really well, Enter the Realm, and it keeps it nice and short, so I'm not going to complain about it. But when it gets into the riffs, like Wisconsin 3, right away, these things are lethal, simple. This is like blunt force trauma riffing. Like, they're not looking for like an elaborate way to kill you. They're looking for like the nearest rock or log or mallet to just brain you with.
And do it over and over, because it's like constant throughout the whole album. Every riff hits hard. Every breakdown is hard. It's just full of like killer earworms, if you will, of just great riffs.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about death metal is the chug. Everybody who watches this channel knows I like chuggy riffs, and this is jam-packed full of it. Like in the vein of Tribal Gaze and Frozen Soul, just blah.
Constant. I mean, honestly, this is a giant groove farm, too. A lot of this is, you know, mid-tempo, double time. You got a lot of, like, bolt thrower groove in there, but you have mortician levels of intensity and love of gore. Maybe not as many movie samples, but few bands do as many movie samples as Mortician. But it has that sort of intensity, and honestly, there really is no break from that on this album. It is a constant barrage of chuggy riffs and grooves and just like halftime sort of hardcore breakdowns. You get some Death Doom breakdowns. This kind of just goes for the most primal shit it can find and just hammers it home.
Yeah, but it does have moments there, because in like Creature Beast, there's a part where there's this big riff and the vocals kind of sit over top of it, and then they flow right back into that mid-tempo, just hit you in the face like you're punching black holes into existence type heavy. You know, it's fucking intense.
It's crowbar type heavy. The breakdown is crowbar heavy. Like, you could hear Kirk screaming over this in his fashion that he does.
You're definitely talking about something more depressing.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, Kirk could sing over fucking anything, and I'd listen to it, so.
The vocals add a lot of cool atmosphere, too. Like, Dustin definitely does more of the big, long, cavernous howls. They have, like, you know, that more of that horror atmosphere to it. But Paul's have that more brutal, sort of like dying fetus, sort of like rhythmic punch to the vocals. And they do some really interesting stuff with like fading them in and out, especially in the song No Escape. There are some growls that come in early on where they kind of fade in and fade out. And they do that repeatedly. And it's kind of a cool atmospheric trick, because when it comes down to atmosphere, you get like spots of it on here. When they kind of pepper it in as like a, you know, more musical element, like, you know, just those weird growls or like kind of changing up the riff a bit, that I think is really cool because, you know, when I started thinking about the Mortician comparisons, like, man, hopefully they don't just like kind of do the Mortician ratio of 1/3 samples and 2/3 brutality.
They definitely didn't stick to that because
No.
it's like mostly brutality and just a little bit of samples at the ends. Oh, the song "No Escape" that you mentioned, that's where that snare really hits you. Like it's really a shotgun blast out.
It's got the reverb cranked all the way up in the breakdown.
Yeah.
It's just, Kah!
And then that little stop in "No Escape," that like, oh, and then back into it's like perfect.
And I mean, the production here is awesome. I know that it was mastered by one Dan Swano, which generally, if I see his name peppered in the production or just in a band, I'm already like, ooh, this is probably going to be really fucking cool. And it's awesome. It is, again, like percussively heavy on everything. Like even the guitars hit just savage as hell. There's a bit of a thrashy sizzle to the riffs. And man, like the low end on here is definitely fucking felt too. Like this is just a gnarly sounding album. And back to the drums, one of the things I particularly like in here, and I noticed right away is, man, the floor tom sounds fucking great. Like when they bring in those breakdowns, like it has that sort of like nasty hardcore vibe. Creature Beast goes into this really cool Death Doom breakdown, and the Death Doom breakdowns in here are sparing but very effective. It's kind of cool seeing them not only just kind of slow it down a step, you know, just in general, but like taking it to like a more doomy approach where they let the riffs kind of drone out. But how it moves back into the nasty groove is absolutely awesome because you get these straight up like kind of Earth Crisis beat down sort of like rhythms, and then the chugs come in, and it's the heaviest thing on the fucking earth at that moment.
Now, although this record is heavy in its entirety, I know we talked about Creature Beast already, but I think that song is particularly ball-dragging, fucking knuckle fist sandwich to the face, fucking flip a pool table, hit somebody with a chair. Like, that song I think is heavy.
I'm scared of anyone that can flip a pool table right away.
No shit. Yeah, come here and move this one over here.
Yeah, well, there's a pool table
Yeah,
in the
there's a
other
pool
room.
table we're trying to get out of here.
It's
so.
full slate. If you flip that, I'm
Yeah.
officially terrified of you.
Speaking of like hitting and throwing and getting mad and angry, like it seems like Dustin is really angry at the drums because he hits the shit out of those things, which I think is why they sound so good on the album, is because you don't need to do much as a recording engineer to record him because it's constantly everything. And even the faster stuff, he's really attacking the drums really well. He's really a fantastic drummer. He's not overly flamboyant about anything, and he doesn't have to fill in a bunch of shit in a space. He just does what the song requires. And because it's so caveman-like, it doesn't require much, but the way he's hitting those damn things, his emotion, his heaviness comes through on the album, and you combine that with the heaviness of the guitars, the heaviness of that fucking nasty bass, and it's just overall just intensely heavy. I know we've said heavy like a shit ton of times in this review, but there's no other way to describe this thing as a whole except for massively brutal and heavy.
Savage, ferocious, vicious.
Primal.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of fucking words we can use to describe this album.
Unga, bunga, ooga, booga.
Unga booga.
Unga booga.
Yeah. Overall, like I would say, it's like very minimalistic, but what it does with its very few elements, I think it does really well. It's just about like getting mosh pits going. Like this is about getting that fucking reptile brain going, because this is, again, just knuckle dragging. Well, I mean, I think it wouldn't drag its knuckles, but I'm reasonably sure if this album was a creature, it'd be like dual wielding a pair of axes where the handles are made out of like human femurs and shit.
It's like a pyramid guy from
Yeah.
Silent Hill
It's-
dragging that big ass sword. That's
dragging
like this whole
something.
album.
And,
yeah.
you know, that's the whole aesthetic about this. And it's sort of just a relentless listen from start to finish. And I don't know, I kind of just like that whole vibe where it is just a continuous barrage.
On the same token, one issue that I found with this was that it's just a collection of heavy fucking riffs nonstop. And while that's not a bad thing and it's not necessarily a complaint, telling these songs apart, except for maybe a couple of them, is really tough to do because you're like, oh yeah, I want to hear the heavy song. Well, that's tracks 2 through 9. So, while it's not necessarily a complaint, it's also a complaint because they actually kind of like meld together.
And there are like cool distinct moments, like there's some really cool atmospheric tremolos that pop up that, you know, kind of add like a more sinister vibe where it's not just like in your face brutality.
Curse has like a twinge of melody in it, just a little bit, because there's not a lot of melody on this album. But there's just a little bit right there.
In Suffering has a really cool triplet, kind of like suffocation style breakdown riff on it.
Off-time triplet chug thing. Yep.
And the last track, Flesher Will Kill You, do not call their bluff, is honestly one of the most savage tracks on the entire album. And honestly, it's one of their most minimalistic in terms of like just the transitions. Like it kind of just sticks this groove, sticks to the riffs. But for some reason, that one really stuck with me because of the pacing. Like it kind of stuck with these riffs for longer, delivered more savage vocals over them. And because it wasn't trying to change over to the next brutal riff that kind of sounded like the last brutal riff, I think that one stuck with me a little bit up until the end, which it kind of does a bit of a Mortician thing where it peppers in a horror sample. And it's a really weird and unsettling one, even though I'm not sure what's going on because it's muffled audio of something bad happening to someone. I'm reasonably sure someone died, but it's kind of hard to make out, and my issue is it kind of cuts off at a riff that could just walk off into the fucking sunset and just close this fucking album beautifully, and it goes on a little too long. If this sample was cut down, because it comes back with the person dying and screaming, and then, it's like, all right, that's cool, and then it only kind of hangs out for a little bit longer before, the album's over. I don't know, like there was just something I think that, could have been trimmed off there and just stick with the riff, because the riff is just a fucking beast.
Yeah, I get what you guys are doing. I totally get it. Don't listen to these fucking guys. When it comes in, it sets up the mood, you're like, okay, what's going to come, and it's muffled, and then you hear like, what is that? What is that? And then you hear this growl, and then it's like a build-up, and then as she's going out, like, I'm going to the car, she gets out the tent or wherever the fuck they are, and then that's when the murder happens. The music comes in, and as the thing is happening or whatever's eating her, is the music's there, and then lights out, game over, it's done, over, psst, done.
I mean, it could have killed her quicker. I'm just saying.
Yeah, what's the fun in that?
I want the riff. But yeah, what Jammin John was saying is something that I definitely felt in here, where there weren't necessarily enough like super big standout moments in some of these songs to really make them stand out. This is, again, a continuous barrage of groove, riffs, and unrelenting brutality. Like, honestly, I would say consistently across the board in this album, it's one of the heaviest listens this year. I know I've said that a lot, but we'll just put that on the list of heavy shit that I've listened to this year that is just relentless. All of it is well done. It's just, it kind of does run together. There's not necessarily a lot of like moments to break up some of this. And well, I mean, that is kind of an issue, but at the same time, like, this is one you can play from start to finish, and you're going to be greeted with some of the heaviest shit you'll listen to this year.
Overall, I'm going to give this a 4. I fucking like heavy, simple, old-school death metal, and this is just a brutal beatdown, one after the other. Every time they get into, like, a halftime chug, dude, it's the biggest stank-faced fucking gnarly, just bleh, all the time, and I love that. I like simplistic music sometimes. Tribal Gaze is guilty of that. Frozen Soul, Bolt Thrower, just heavy. Heavy for the sake of being heavy and done really well. Everything's beefy and fucking laced with stank, and it's wonderful. 4 stars for me. If you're a fan of, again, Mortician, Tribal Gaze, Frozen Soul, Bolt Thrower, Dying Fetus, Crowbar, anything that you can think of that's disgustingly fucking heavy, you're going to love this. I would recommend going out and picking this one up.
I'm going to go with a 3.5. I do really dig this one. It's close to a 4, but not quite. This is, again, relentless brutality from start to finish. I mean, it wraps up in a nice time. Like, it really doesn't scream like, a lot of wasted momentum on here. It's all just sort of a continuous fucking beatdown. While I would have liked some more like standout songs, like maybe a song that's a little bit more blasty, or maybe a song that is entirely more doom laden, I like what I heard on here. Like, this band is fucking crushing, and honestly, if you go see them live, you will hear this in even heavier fashion. Like, this is honestly kind of tame compared to their live show. The production's excellent. The riffs are fucking savage. This is built to start mosh pits. So, yeah, go see this band live. Maybe get in the mosh pit. Maybe be a giant pussy like me and stay out of it because you're old enough to know better. But go see them live. Go pick up this album. If you like any of the bands that we've compared this to, like namely Suffocation, Mortician, like just the heaviest shit, you'll dig this. Check it out.
And I'm going to be the highballer on this 4.5 out of 5 because obviously I like stupid. It's not stupid even. It's just get to the point. Give me 30, 35 minutes of punch you in the face brutality, grooves all over the place. And I don't want, like, I don't care if I can pick a song out. Just start it and then finish it. That's the way I kind of look at this album. And I can, I really attach to riffs and stuff. So I can hum a riff and be like, okay, that's the fourth song. So songs do stick out for me. Just being so sucked into riff and that whole idea of I blame Crowbar and shit for that. And honestly, what's making this not like a perfect thing is like kind of more, I guess, spread out with the doomy elements and the more atmospheric stuff because they really do it well. When they do it in those little moments, it really fits. And then it makes the brutal stuff that much heavier and more brutal. So I think this is like a great base for this band, and I can't wait. These guys the sky's the limit for these dudes, I think.
So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time.
And we have Patreon. The link is below if you'd like to help us out there, help keep the lights on, if you will. And the store is up, thrallsofmetal.com. We have these lovely shirts here, as shown by this homeless guy we picked up earlier before the review.
He loves the shiniest of coins.
You guys got any cigarettes?
Yeah, this Doom Machine artist, Dylan Baker. He's a fantastic artist. We'll put a link to his stuff below there, too. And we also have live shows here. And this band is playing this Friday in Fort Wayne at Pierre's in Stan's Room. So if you've heard this album, want to see it live, see what Nick's talking about, how heavy these guys are fucking live, Pierre's this Friday in Fort Wayne.
Fletcher will kill you.
Yes, they will.
And then Sunday, September 24th at Howard's Club H in Bowling Green, Ohio, we have Yotuma, Convulsus, and the Black Order. And then October 1st at Frankie's in Toledo, Ohio, we have Revocation, Unearth, Entheos, and High Command. So a lot of shows in this area that we're kind of honored to be a part of. And, yeah.
And, of course, thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. Again, it means the world to us.
Thank you.
I know we say like the same shit every time, but we mean it.
Thank you.
You guys are fucking awesome, and we have a ton of content planned for you, and there's going to be a lot of reviews and just a lot of just stuff because everyone's releasing stuff and everyone's on tour right now, so it's absolute mayhem, but in kind of a cool way. And that's odd because Mayhem is actually touring too, so that's a fun word to bring in there. Either way, you guys rule, and we will catch you later.